A few interesting news items since my last stream, which was 2 days ago. Naftali Bennett has called, I think I mentioned this last time, Naftali Bennett, who is one of the people, at least ostensibly, wanting to be prime minister. Practically speaking, I don't think he has a chance. Again, this is Naftali Bennett. He is the leader of likely the third largest party after the elections. And he started going after Qatar. Now, it's both practically speaking a good idea and also electorally speaking a good idea. This is the first good move I feel he's made electorally. He's essentially saying, in the next government, we will declare Qatar to be an enemy state. This is a cancer metastasizing into the West, including into the prime minister's office in Israel, and that's why it's a good political idea. There is now it's a mountain out of a molehill. Some people that work under Netanyahu in the prime minister's office had some ties indirectly to Qatar to advertise the World Cup when it was there. And that's the story, and people are making of it more than it is for political reasons. To say that Qatar's infiltrated the prime minister's office and they're in cahoots with Netanyahu. They paid him off, and that's why he's doing things to support Qatar, like bombing them. And that's why, like, practically speaking, if you look at actions, there's no way you can look at the actions that the prime minister's office has been taking over the last 3 years since October 7th and say that, oh, they're clearly bought by Qatar. Now, there is one thing that arguably, that you could argue they took Qatar's point or position, and not necessarily for legitimate reasons, which is who is in charge of the negotiations about the hostages. Who's the mediator? Is it Egypt or is it Qatar? And some people within Netanyahu's office pushed for Qatar to be the mediator. And you could argue, okay, well, they have a conflict of interest there because they used to work, again, indirectly, but they used to work for Qatari interests. There might be, maybe something more will come out of it. I heard some rumblings, like, we'll see. There is a trial ongoing now for that, for those people. So far, I haven't seen like a smoking gun or something that makes me think that it was more than an indirect work for the Qataris through a separate company. And the problem with the idea that the issue is excuse me. The problem with the idea that the choice to go with Qatar was made for illegitimate reasons is that the opposition at the time also very much favored going with Qatar as the mediator. I don't remember anyone saying in real time, well, this is weird. Why are we going with Qatar as a mediator as opposed to Egypt? All of the people that were for the negotiations were also siding with Qatar, or siding with Qatar as the mediator. Okay. Good. So Naftali Bennett is trying to play off of that, and it's both a good idea to do, but also he's trying to then create a contrast between himself and Netanyahu, because Netanyahu is bought by Qatar. I cannot be bought. I cannot be bribed, and we should treat Qatar as an enemy state, and we should expose it as the Islamistic terror funding state that it is, because a lot of its power comes from the soft power that it can invest in Western governments, because it presents itself as peaceful, even though it's one of the most destructive countries in the world to the West. Okay. So someone in the chat is saying, B Sendall, damn, you clock out of the Iranian Revolution for 5 minutes / months, and all of a sudden Armin is some American guy with a very nice beard. Love that for us. So I'm not Armin. My beard is okay at best, and I'm also not American. So you got all three wrong. I'm Israeli. I sound American. I know I sound American. A lot of people don't believe me when I say I'm not American and I've never been to America. But yeah, I'm Israeli. I have the Israel corner of Liberty Politics. I settled Liberty Politics to have some Israeli content. And welcome aboard. So this is, I talk about geopolitics from Israeli perspective, sometimes also about philosophy, epistemology, and stuff like that. Okay. So people are saying, yeah. So Sean is asking, isn't Egypt kind of worse though? It depends. So it's really it's apples and oranges. It's not something that's very clearly you should go with Egypt as opposed to Qatar as the mediator. Egypt is less pro Hamas. Like Egypt has less direct ties with Hamas, and it's anti-Hamas, and that it didn't let Palestinians cross from Gaza to Egypt during the war because it was afraid of the refugees being Muslim Brotherhood, i.e. Hamas, and therefore taking over parts of the Sinai or increasing the Muslim Brotherhood's power in the country. And so they're against them, but at the same time, they also don't have as much leverage against them because the Hamas leadership, at least at the time, it's still the case now, but they said that they'd kick them out, and I think they didn't. Now they're back, and I'm not sure exactly what's going on there. But the Hamas leadership lived in Qatar. They were able to and eventually it worked. Like at the end of the day, because of both Turkey and Qatar agreeing to the Trump plan, that's what got all the hostages released. Like getting on board with Trump's plan. That was the thing that got the hostages released, and I don't think Egypt would have had the same kind of power over Hamas. So Egypt is more anti-Hamas, and it has positives and negatives when you're trying to negotiate a ceasefire or a hostage release. Okay. All right. So people saying they don't trust Bennett. So Bobo is saying Bennett signed a government with the Muslim Brotherhood. Yes, technically, I always say it's more complicated than that because Mansour Abbas is, at least on the surface, trying to distance himself from the Muslim Brotherhood. But like, it's not as bad as it sounds, but it is still pretty bad. At the same time, Netanyahu also wanted to sit with him. The only reason that didn't happen is because Smotrich refused, said, like, this is not going to happen. I'd rather go to another election. At the time, he was presenting himself as this revolutionary Arab leader who's willing to deal with non-Palestinian issues, just improve the lives of Arabs in Israel. And as a result, he was seen as like someone who's practically speaking, like he was the best chance at the time of making Arab Israelis like politically something that can be worked with, as opposed to, oh, let's destroy Israel, let's eliminate all the Jews here in some way, which is the different flavors of the same thing is what the Arab parties are suggesting. Some from a secular perspective, make a secular communistic perspective, and some from an overtly nationalistic / Islamistic perspective. Okay, so Shauna is asking, isn't Egypt more openly racist against Jews as well, though? Although the choices between Turkey and Egypt, both options suck. So you have to distinguish between the people and the leadership. Now, Qatar, the people are basically the leadership. It's a very small country, you have the citizens who are Muslims, and you have a whole bunch of essentially slave labor that are Hindu and Christians and stuff like that. Which, by the way, as a result, when Tucker Carlson says, "Oh, well, Qatar has more Christians, has an increase in Christian population over Israel, or has more Christians in Israel," you have to take into account that those are slave labor that often die working, and they're segregated to their own places. Whereas in Israel, the Christian community is growing, and they're equal citizens. Some of them advocate for Israel, like Yusuf Haddad, and they can get to any level of power. You had Supreme Court justices who are Christian in Israel. A Christian Arab Supreme Court justice in Israel put a sitting president behind bars. So you have to distinguish between the people and the leadership. In Qatar, there's no difference. In Egypt, you have a practical military dictatorship of a leadership. Practical as in pragmatic. So they're pragmatic, and so they know that they require Israel to stay to prevent their economy from collapsing. And so they're going to play nice, even though the rhetoric is bad. And by the way, I think Israel should demand that the education curriculum in Egypt becomes at least somewhat less Nazi, overtly Nazi, like pro-Hitler, anti-Jewish, thinking Jews are the devil, and so on. But the leadership can be worked with, although they are amassing forces. Some are saying it's to attack us, and we should be prepared for that eventuality. And also, they need, as a result, we're talking to them about going out of the Sinai Desert, which is part of the peace agreement. They can't have forces in the Sinai Desert, or at least up to a certain point. Like they have a cap, and so they need to move their forces out. But overall, right now, they're like, you can sort of talk to them. We signed a gas agreement with them, for example, for several tens of billions of dollars. Amberly is saying Tucker Carlson doesn't care about Christians as much as he cares for Islam. But I don't think he even cares for Islam. I think he cares for Qatar. I think he's bought and paid for by Qatar. But yes, I agree with the sentiment. In Qatar, Christians are slaves. In Israel, Christians have a higher income than most Israelis. Big difference. Yes, that is. I remember seeing something vaguely about that statistic. Yeah, like it's night and day. Christians in Israel are equal citizens. In theory, you can have a Christian prime minister. It just hasn't happened yet for demographic reasons. Although I think Yusuf Haddad, theoretically, I can see a way where if he plays his cards right when he goes into politics, he's very clearly going into politics, into internal politics in Israel. But if he plays his cards right, he could be a major political figure in Israel. I don't know if he could quite make it to prime minister just because of the way the parties work, but he can be, at the very least, a prominent minister. Okay, so B Sendall. I think it's unfair to call any single population racist overall. It always turns out badly, as far as I know. So you can look up opinion polls in Egypt about Israel, and about Jews, and it's 90+%. So I'm not saying that there aren't, and I think the Coptics, for example, the Christian Coptics are an exception, but you have to understand also that their education system brainwashes them to blame all of the problems of Egypt, of which there are many, on the Jews.